So, good morning, everybody, and let me first of all thank the organizers for inviting the Commission also to be present here today. It's a real pleasure, also for me personally, to be back in Slovenia. I haven't been here since the Slovenian presidency back in 2008, where I was here with a slightly different hat, because at that time I was head of unit for renewable energy in the Commission. I'm now head of unit for international relations, so just to link in with what Jean-Michel said, I've moved from one box in the Commission to another box. I've moved from the internal to the external, so in that sense it's actually quite a nice title of this event here today. Just as a couple of introductory remarks, I'll try and define a little bit some of the key frameworks that from the Commission side we see as the most important for the moment. The global context, I don't think I need really to go into it very much. We are seeing an energy situation globally which is changing quite rapidly. From that point of view, I think also the timing of this event is excellent. We're seeing a lot of things happening in the world, including most recently some political tensions between producer and consumer countries, which have lifted security of supply issues to the top of the European agenda. But there are many other agendas that are going for the moment. Climate and energy policy, what are we going to do to solve our climate change objectives? How is energy going to make a positive contribution to make us get out of the economic and financial crisis? What's happening with nuclear? What's happening with renewables? There are very many things happening, and many of these things are really things that are happening in a global context. The key framework for the moment in the EU is, of course, the climate and energy package that was adopted, partly because of the good work done by the Slovenian presidency back in 2008, where we managed to get quite some ambitious renewable and energy policy objectives agreed at EU level. 20% greenhouse gas reductions compared to 2020, compared to 1990 by 2020, 20% renewable energy by 2020, and a strong increase in energy consumption also by 2020. This is a slide that shows us a little bit how we're doing in terms of meeting those objectives. So it looks as if we will meet our greenhouse gas objective. In fact, we will meet it quite comfortably, overshooting the target quite considerably. We will probably also be able to do better in renewable energy than the 20% target, whereas the 20% reduction in energy consumption is looking a little bit more difficult. In fact, since this slide was produced, the things are looking a little bit better, and we're now probably going to be relatively close to the 20%, but still not meeting it completely. Back earlier this year, we came forward with our ideas for how to take this framework forward to 2030. The 20% greenhouse gas reduction objective should be increased to 40% by 2030. The 20% renewables target should be at least 27% also by 2030. And as far as energy efficiency is concerned, this is an issue that the Commission will address later in 2014, hopefully still before the summer or during the summer. All of this coupled with a system of new key indicators for energy and climate and a new governance system at a European level, mainly consisting of obligations for member states to produce quite comprehensive plans how to meet their targets. At the same time, we've seen a lot of attention to the issue of energy prices and costs. For that reason, the Commission earlier this year came out with a report that addressed that issue. It showed quite clearly that energy prices in Europe are considerably higher than, for example, in the US, but maybe more comparable to the energy prices in Asia. It also showed, and I think that is a very important conclusion of that work, that the majority of the reasons for those higher prices are not to do with the fact that we in Europe are moving ahead more rapidly on our climate objectives than other parts of the world. In fact, a very small part of those energy price increases are directly linked to our policies, for example, on renewable energy. Lastly, and you will be aware that we are pursuing 3 key energy policy objectives in the EU. We've dealt with the first one, sustainability, that's the climate package. We've dealt with the competitiveness objective, which is the issue of prices and costs. The third one, of course, is security of supply, and there we see tendencies that are slightly worrying. Because, in fact, if we look at our external dependency compared to many other parts of the world, you will see that we are going up both when it comes to our import dependency on oil, but also on gas, and we are already quite high on both of those compared to, for example, China and India. Not as bad as Japan, but still, and you will see the tendency is for this to become a more dramatic concern between now and 2035. If we compare with the United States, we see quite an interesting move in the exact opposite direction. The United States are becoming much more self-sufficient, both when it comes to oil and gas. In fact, US is set to become a net exporter of gas by 2030, at least. Now, energy dependency is not necessarily a real strong concern if you have a well-diversified supply structure. What you see here, though, is that both for oil and gas, that is not the case for the EU. We are quite heavily dependent on some particular suppliers, and you will see here for gas, these are figures from 2011. We have about 1/3 of our gas coming from Russia. In fact, I was just looking at the numbers for 2013 before coming here, and that share has actually increased since then quite significantly. It was something like 39% in 2013. That is, of course, the main concern if you have a supply structure where you rely very heavily on some particular suppliers. The other issue here to bear in mind is that this is for the EU as a whole. Of course, the situation for individual member states are sometimes quite dramatic, and many member states are relying, in fact, on one single supplier, for example, for gas. That is, I think, the main reason why the European Council in March of this year has asked the Commission to look into this matter in more detail already by June, so basically now, by coming forward with an in-depth study on energy security and to present a comprehensive plan for reducing our energy dependence. So this is really the work that we are moving ahead full speed, including in my unit, back home in Brussels these days. Hopefully this should be adopted still at the end of this month. You will see here what the European Council gave in terms of guidance for the Commission on what elements should be covered there, and of course this is really quite clearly comprehensive because it looks at both the demand side and the supply side. We should aim to reduce our energy demand in the EU. We should aim to produce more energy domestically in the EU. We should aim at diversifying. We should speak with a single voice, as was mentioned earlier. We should complete our internal market. We should complete all our plans for infrastructure. All of these things will make us much better prepared for any kind of supply disruptions that might happen in the future. So basically, just to conclude on that, this is the outlook that we're looking at for the moment. You've heard from me the 3 key building blocks or 3 key objectives of EU energy policy. Competitiveness, we need to make sure that energy helps us compete with the rest of the world. We need to have secure energy supplies in Europe, and we need to use and produce energy in a sustainable manner, including when it comes to climate. The elements to address these things are also mentioned here. Of course, energy efficiency will have to be a cornerstone of all this work. It actually addresses all three of these things very nicely. Renewable energy sources as well, at least as long as you do not move too extensively into really expensive types of renewables. We need to diversify. We need to have more diversified supply routes and supply sources, and we need to work on our infrastructure, on our market arrangements in order to be fully prepared for what undoubtedly are going to be even stronger challenges in the years to come. I think with this we've set probably a little bit the framework for the rest of the discussion, and I really very much look forward to today. Thank you very much.
Thanks a lot.